Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to another Gaming Rules Review. In this video, I'm going to be telling you what I think about Orleans, designed by Rainer Stockhausen, originally published in 2014 by DLP Games, and also printed by Tasty Minstrel Games, who've done a number of different versions of this game. I'm going to be showing you my copy of the game, which I bought myself, but there is a deluxe version of the game, and there's a deluxe add-ons, and there's a whole host of extra bits. But I'm just going to be showing you the basic game here, but I'm going to be talking about the expansions later on in the video. Thank you very much to all of my Patreon supporters who make this kind of video possible, and thanks to them for voting on this game as one of the games that I would review this month. Or last month, because I'm doing this video a little bit late. If you are interested in supporting the show, if you like the content that I create, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gamingrules. So, on with the game. What is Orleans? Orleans is a Euro-style game where, like most Euro-style games, there isn't that much theme to the game. In fact, this game only has a couple of lines in the rulebook. Basically says, you're in medieval France, you're going around, you're doing stuff, and you're trying to get victory points. And that's basically what it is that you're doing. So if you're looking for a very, historically accurate or very thematic game, this is not it. This is a good Euro game with some interesting decisions. The core mechanic of the game is bag building. You have a bag. Your bag is filled with your followers. You start off with a few followers, and every round you will draw out a certain number of tiles which you will put into your market, and then you can allocate those tiles onto your player board. And you'll notice the player board has different coloured spaces. The colour of the follower must go on the exact colour space, with the exception of if you get a monk. Monks are a wild card, they can go anywhere. And some of the spaces can take anything. So let's say I had this, and let's say I had the monk, I could put that there. The monk would act as a knight. Then I could put that there, that there. Then I can put that one. What have I got here? Okay, so yeah, I don't quite have enough to do exactly what I want to do, but let's say I decide to put that one there, and I'll keep that one for next turn. So you can partially fill some of the spaces and then fill them up next round. But basically, every action on here that you manage to fill with your follower tiles, you will then get to be able to carry out that action. So there's a part of the game where everybody sort of simultaneously selects what their actions are, and then you'll go around the table and everybody takes their actions. The actions will allow you to move your piece around the board, where you pick up these goods tiles as you pass. You can build guild halls in some of the places that you land in. So let's say I move down here, I could pick up some cheese, nice like some Wensleydale, I think. And then I could choose the guild hall action to put a guild hall here. A lot of these actions are all about getting extra people. So for example, if I went into the castle here, I would need a black follower, a blue follower, and a white follower, which is a farmer, a tradesman, and a merchant, I think. And then I would get an extra knight. So I would move my cube up on the track, I would get an extra knight, and that would go in my bag. Every time you do an action, the pieces come off and go back in your bag. So unlike a lot of other deck building games where you have a deck and a discard pile, and it's only when your deck is empty that you shuffle your discard pile back in, this works in a different way. You could have pieces still in your bag left from the last round, and the pieces that you've used this round, you'll put back in your bag, you shuffle them up, and it might be that you still don't get them out again. So that's how that works. You basically draw things from your bag, put them on your board to choose the actions, do the actions which gets you all of this. Basically, you'll add up your points at the end of the game, but there's a number of ways of scoring them. One thing I like about this game is there does seem to be a variety of strategies that you can take. There's this scholar track, well, I think it's called the development track at the bottom, and by taking these, I think the scholars, you can move up this track, and there's other ways of getting development points. That's going to give you various bonuses during the game. You're not going to be able to recruit all of these during the game, so you kind of have a choice of which ones you want to go with. You kind of have a strategy going into the game, and most of the time you will be able to carry out that strategy. Of course, there is the luck element of what you draw out the bag. And if you say, oh right, I'm definitely going to be doing this near the start of the game, but then the right things don't come out, you're going to have a change of plan. The buildings are interesting. So I've just got here the base game where you can see that there are this many buildings. And all of these buildings are available to you. They're in level 1 and level 2. They're actually not called buildings. They're called place tiles, which is a little unusual, but that's what they are. And they're all available in every game. Now, some people play with the house rule where you remove some of them at the start of the game, because otherwise what might happen is people might play the game and go, I'm going to do this strategy and I'm going to buy that building, and that building. And with all the buildings available, unless somebody else buys them, they'll be able to do that. But what these buildings offer, and I'm calling them buildings again, is a whole variety of strategical options that you have in the game. Now, one of the downsides of all of these tiles, and I've just got the ones from the base game here, if you add in the ones from the expansion, you end up with a lot more. And then if you add in all of the different promo packs, of which I think there's about 47,000 of them, you end up with this big stack of buildings. The problem then comes, if you know the game, it's all fine, because you go, I'm going to go and take the winery, and you take it. But if you don't know the game and you're new to the game and you decide to build one of these merchants that allows you to construct one of the places, buildings, you've then got to look through the whole pile and go, oh, wow, which one of these do I want? The other problem that we had with the game is when we mixed all the expansions together, when we wanted to look at what a certain one did, we didn't have a player aid. What I really need for this game is a player aid, and there's probably one on BGG somewhere, of all the buildings and what they do, because having to find the buildings and there's no identifier on the tiles, this was the biggest problem. You take a tile and you don't know whether this was from the base game or from an expansion. So basically you've got to go looking through the books to find out, which one this is. So a bit of a disadvantage, as it's a double-edged blade, lots of variety here, allows for a lot more strategic options, but it could slow the game down when players are looking through the big stack of what buildings they want to build or what places they want to build. Other than that, lots and lots of choices in the game. The game lasts for 18 rounds, and you have these event tiles. Now, these are the ones from the basic game. And what you'll do is you'll go through these event tiles one around. Now, the good thing with the event tiles is you get to see the event at the start of the round, but it doesn't apply until phase 6. To be honest, if the rules were not like that, then I would house rule them. I don't like games where you reveal an event and then it happens straight away and you weren't able to plan for it. So the fact that you reveal them at the start of the round and then you've got the whole round to prepare for it is great, and I really like that. The only one I don't like, and I do house rule this because I think it's awful, is the plague. Because a lot of the other events will mean, right, it's a harvest. Everybody must pay one food token or you've got to pay some money. Right, and it affects everybody the same. Or, in this round, everybody has to pay taxes based on how many goods you've collected. Okay, that will affect different people in different ways, but if you've been collecting goods, you pay more taxes. That's fair. The plague, everybody loses one follower from their bag. However, if you draw one of your starting followers, which is the one with a little bar on the bottom of your colour, you don't lose anything. So in some situations, and this actually happened to me, it's quite, I don't know what the percentage chance of it happening is, but it happened to me 3 games on the run. The plague came out as the second event in the game. So it came out really early in the game. And some players, at that point, you've got lots of your own followers in the bag. They would draw out their own one and go, I'm all right. And another player who's just recruited something, so they spent their entire first turn recruiting something, and it turns out that that person then dies. So in a game that's going to last 18 rounds, on round 2, the player who got affected by that and the other people didn't, it crippled them and they came last. And that happened in 3 consecutive games. So I play with a house rule for the plague, where it only affects, one player determines whether there is a plague or not by drawing a tile out of the bag. And then if they lose a piece, if that would mean they don't lose a piece, but if they did lose a piece, then it means everybody loses a piece. So it affects everybody fairly. Apart from that, didn't have any problems with the event tiles. As I say, I like the fact that you see them ahead of time. One of the places in the original game was a bit bonkers broken, apparently. They fixed it in my version. I can't remember exactly which one it was called, but anyway, yeah, one of them in the original game wasn't great. So if you've only got the original game, then definitely go and check out the new rules for that one. The beneficial deeds board over here, this is where you can send your workers using the town hall to here to get a bit more points. Basically, money is points. However, there's lots of different tracks, and whoever finishes the track will get the citizen token. Citizen tokens are really powerful and can get you extra points at the end of the game. So if you're going to be using the beneficial deeds board, and you probably do want to at some point in the game, you need to be watching the other players, watching where the turn order is and planning accordingly, because you do want to finish it off and you do want to get that citizen if you can. The downside of the beneficial deeds board is it's a little bit boring. Now, it was all fine and good until the expansion came along with a new board, which made it a lot more interesting. And this one is a little bit boring. So, components. Let's talk about the components. The original version of the game, when this came out, 2014, these counters here, which you are putting in your bag and shaking around a lot, were wafer thin. They were pretty awful. And I did not buy the game in 2014 because of it, because the game looked great. People who were playing it said it's really good, but these were getting worn already, you know, in the demo copy that was there, or people playing it a couple of times. And yeah, they were wafer thin. Now, I've got a version where they're nice, big, chunky card, but the deluxe version, I'm going to show some images on screen now. This is the version from a friend's copy, Mark, who's I've borrowed and I've been playing with. Nice wooden meeples with stickers on. A slight correction, these meeples with stickers on are not in the deluxe version of the game. They are available separately as an add-on from the DLP games. The pieces that come with the deluxe version of the game look like this. Money's good, and it uses the, obviously you've got 10s at a bigger size, and then the 5s, and then the 1s. So different colour, different size, all good. Still surprised when games don't do that. The rest of the components, it's okay. The board's fairly sturdy. The counters they're only 1 mil thick, but they're good and sturdy. Nothing else I had any problem with whatsoever. The graphic design is fairly clear. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it, but the different goods icons are nicely coloured so you can tell them apart. This is all clear. The artwork didn't really get in the way of it for me. The rule book, some of the terminology was a little bit odd. As I say, these being called places, these being called technology tiles, this being called development, even though the icon is a book. There was a couple of little terminology things that were a little bit confusing, but other than that, the rulebook is generally okay. It has a few examples in there, which is good. The bit that I didn't like with the rulebook is on the very, very back cover, where we should have a list of all the events and the places, which we do. They are at the back of the rulebook, but what we have here are general rules of the game. And some of these are actually really important. So this should not have been here. This should have been earlier on in the rulebook at the point where it was important rather than tucked away at the end. But yeah, other than that, rulebook was okay. Orleans is a game which I very much enjoy. I'm not quite sure whether it's not quite a top 10 game for me, but I do enjoy it. As I say, I do have a house rule for the Plague. I also had another house rule for the player boards until it turns out that I'd misread one of the rules wrong, and my house rule was actually in the game. So I'm not going to list that as a house rule because I use exactly the same rule as is printed. Very much enjoy the game. Will rarely say no to a game of it. I've been playing a lot of it recently, and yeah, really enjoy it. So let's move on to the expansion. Right. First expansion is Invasion. This came in another size, another box, and Invasion gives a whole host of extra bits. It has an extra scenario. Well, it has a few scenarios. It has Prosperity, which is a 2 to 5 player scenario where you can do different things in the game. So it uses all the same core mechanics, but with a few differences. There is also Invasion, which is a cooperative scenario. I've only played that once with 2 players, and it was an interesting challenge, and we almost succeeded, but that makes you play the game in a very different way. So I enjoyed Invasion. Apart from, for some reason, these tiles were placed face down in one of the scenarios, and I couldn't understand why. The Duel is a 2-player scenario, and I enjoyed playing that, although there was a couple of things in the Duel that felt like it should have been a solo game. For example, you use a board. Let's get the board out. Which is the one for the Duel? That's Prosperity. Yeah, so each of the games has, right. So you'll be playing with this. So this will go over by the side of the board, and it has 16 rounds, and the events are fixed. So you know exactly what's going to happen. And in a couple of those events, if you don't, like this one was pay some money or pay something, if you can't do it, you lose the game immediately. That seemed very odd in a 2-player game. I can understand that in a solo game, but it felt a bit odd in a 2-player game. Anyway, I've played the Duel. That was an interesting scenario. I've played Invasion. I mentioned that's the cooperative one. That uses 2 extra boards, and you've basically got to achieve a whole host of things before the end of the game. So that's quite interesting that you have all of these different objectives to achieve. I would definitely play that one again. What else is in Invasion? There's a whole host of new buildings, which, as I've mentioned earlier on, can be good and bad. And there's 3 solo scenarios. I've only played the Dignitary, but I might try and get one more played before I give this copy back to Mark. Yeah, so this is Mark's copy of the game. Thank you very much again, Mark. So that's Invasion. Trade and Intrigue. Now, Trade and Intrigue introduces a new Beneficial Deeds board. Basically, it's a new Beneficial Deeds board, but with more interesting things on there that do more interesting things. They give you additional abilities when you go on there, rather than just giving you points. The Intrigue one, now, this is interesting because this is nasty stuff. This is stuff which directly affects another player. So this increases the amount of player interaction in the game by quite a lot. I have only played with the Intrigue board once, and only in 2-player. I would only ever play it in 2-player because otherwise it adds a take that element to the game. Now, two trains of thought on this, and I've got both of them going on in my head at the same time, which is probably why I've got a headache. I like the fact that they have taken a game like Orleans with very minimal player interaction, and they have put in this in order to, massively change the game and introduce a take that element into the game. I can appreciate that, but Orleans is not the type of game that is going to be played by people who like that kind of thing. And if you don't like that kind of thing, you're probably not going to play with this anyway. So it's interesting. I'm not sure why, but they've put it in there. I've played with it once. And as I say, I only ever played with it in 2-player because I take that in a 2-player game for me is okay. I don't mind that so much. The problem is a lot of this take that actually hurts your engine. So Orleans does have a bit of engine building in the game. You're adding things into your bag, you're buying these places which give you extra abilities, you are taking these technology tiles or cogs to improve bits on your board. And what this does is it gets rid of some of those. So you're building up an engine, but then bits of it are going. And even in a 2-player game, so I'm glad I've played with this, but I'm never going to play with it again. Now, what else is in Trade and Intrigue? There are some extra bits. There are the orders, which we played with in one game and they didn't seem to do anything. The biggest thing in Trade and Intrigue is the events. There is a whole new set of events. All of these original 18 events disappear, and you get a whole host of new 18 events, and the plague has gone. So I'm glad about that. No need for a house rule. And they're seeded as well. So certain ones come out near the start and some ones come out at the end. I know a number of people that will never play Orleans without the new events from this expansion. New beneficial deeds, new intrigue. Yeah, so that's that. I think that's about everything. I've covered the components. I've covered the rules. Have I said whether I like the game? Yeah, I think I said whether I like the game or not. Downsides of the game? Not many. Really not many. Slight luck of the draw with things that you pull out of your bag can be a game changer. I played one game yesterday where win or lose at the end of the game was down to whether I drew the red one out, because if I had done that, would have allowed me to do this and would have got me a few more points. But it was a close game anyway. Downside on... What was the other thing? There was another thing. Oh yeah, very, very minor. A couple of times when I've played this, I felt that 18 rounds was a bit too long. I think I'm the only one that thinks that. Turns go quick. That is a good thing about this game. Your turns are really quick. Your actions are really, really small actions. It's like, oh, I'm going to do the wagon action. What does that do? I'm going to move my piece from there to there and I'm going to pick up this. Done. Your turns are relatively small, so there won't be much downtime in the game. Even if you finish all of your actions and the other player still has one or two to do, it's not going to take them that long. The downside of the buildings, I did mention, I've seen that in a few games where somebody built one of those and then took ages deciding on one of these buildings or places or whatever you want to call them. But other than that, I think this game is a really good game. So if you've liked this video, please let me know what you think. Whether you like Orleans, what I'd like in the comments is for you to list your good things and bad things about the game. Did you agree with me? Did you have your own things that you liked about the game which I've forgotten to mention? Or did you have things about the game that you didn't like, which I didn't mention? And as I mentioned at the start, if you like this video and any of the other content that I make, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules, as your support allows me to create more videos and produce bigger and better content. Well, maybe not bigger, but hopefully better. That's everything. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.